Welcome back. In this step, we would want to create the retrieve all to-dos for a user get service. One of the things I observed when I went to the package structure is the way we have organized our stuff is not really perfect. So what I would want to start with is I would want to start with moving these two specific packages. So I would want to say this bean, I would want to move to a package called hello world. I did dot hello world to a control one or a command one, and I'll say move hello world bean to that package. And I'll also do the similar thing with the hello world controller. So what I would want to do is move this to the hello world controller. I would want to move it to dot hello world package. Do a control one and say move. And now you'd see that everything is very well organized. So we have all the hello world services in a single package, and we have the RESTful web service application in the root package. That's cool. Just make sure that everything is fine by just running the services again. So this looks cool. If you go to the home and just do a get welcome message, this is working fine. So everything else is fine. Let's now focus on creating the retrieve all to-dos for a user service. What I'll do is I'll create a new class. I'll call this to do resource. I'll say finish. As usual, we would add a at rest controller annotation. Press control space and import the REST controller annotation in. What we want to do is we would want to create a get method. So public list of to-dos. So we would want to return a list of to-dos, get all to-dos, and we would want to be able to get them for a specific user. So get all to-dos for a specific user, and we would want to be able to return all those back. What we'll do to start off is we'll not really talk to a database. At the start, we'll focus on having a simple in-memory service. At a later point in time in the course, we'll convert to using a JPA and Hibernate based service. For now, let's get started with very simple things. Let's focus on one thing at a time. Now, what I'll do is I'll create a new class called to do. So control 1 over here, create class to do. Let's go ahead and create it in the dot to do package and say finish. What I'll do is also move the to do service to the dot to do package. Control 1, move this to the dot to do package. That's cool. There are compilation errors, that's fine. We'll fix them as we go. Public long ID. So we'd want to store an ID. Should it be public? Actually, it should be private. And we'd want to store which user that to do belongs to. Let's do private string username. What is the description of that specific to do? Private string description. You'd want to store the target date. Private date target date. And we would want to store the completion status. Is it completed or not? Private boolean is done. Let's import the java.util.date. Be careful with the import. It should be java.util.date. Let's quickly create the getters and setters for all the to-dos. So I'll create a generate getters and setters, and I'll say select all, and we'll create getters and setters for all this stuff, as well as let's create a constructor as well. The way I generated the getters and setters, if you are new to this, is right click source, generate getters and setters, and over here there are other methods as well. So you can generate toString, generate constructor, and all that stuff. I'll also want to generate a constructor. I'll do generate constructor using fields. So Alt Shift S and generate constructor using fields. So let's generate a constructor. Oops, it's created down here. I don't really want it down here. I would want it down here. So we quickly created a bean with a constructor and also the getters and setters. Let's format it, Control Shift F or Command Shift F, and let's go to the to do resource and let's do an import of java.util. This is not really compiling because we are not yet returning a list of to-dos back. What I would want to do is I would want to create a service. So private to do, let's start with a hard-coded service. So to do hard-coded service and call this to do service. This service does not exist yet. So let's create it. Control 1, create class to do hard-coded service. And let's go ahead and create it in the same package, to do package. That's cool. and say finish. What I would want to do in the to-do hard-coded service is I would want to be able to have a static list of to-dos. So I'll say private static list of to-dos is equal to new array list of to-do. Let's import the list array list control1 and import it in. You don't really need to specify it in here because it's inferred from here. So let's import java.util.list as well. What we'll do is, for now, this would act as our database. So we would put all the things into this and we'll create methods around it. Let's initialize the data in this. So let's say static. So we'll create a static initializer block and add in to-dos dot add. Let's create a new to-do down here. So what all stuff do we need to create a new to-do? I need an ID. So for the ID, what I'll do is I'll create a quick counter. So I'll say private static int ID counter is equal to 0. And each time for every to do, let's do a plus plus ID counter. So IDs would start with 1. And what's the next parameter? It's username. For now, let's hard code it to in 28 minutes. The next one is description. Let's say we would want to learn to dance. That's the first one. The next one is the date, new date, and for all the to-dos, let's mark them as false to start off. Let's do a control1 and import java.util.date. Be careful with it. Java.util.date is what we want, and press a semicolon. Cool. Now we have this present. Let's decrease the font size a bit so that we can see a little bit more of this stuff now that we are typing in a lot of stuff in here. I would want to add 3 to-dos in 28 minutes. Learn to dance. I would want to learn about microservices. I would want to learn about Angular. Is that good? Now let's start with creating a very simple method to return this list of to-dos, right? So what do we need? We would want to retrieve all these to-dos back. What we'll do is we'll create a method called find all. List of user, find all, and oops, the list of to-do. Where does the user come from? It should be list of to-do, and all that I need to do is say return to-dos. Cool. Now we have the to-dos being returned back from here. One of the things which we are doing in here is we are adhering to Spring Data JPS syntax so that we can easily switch to it later. For now, let's go to the to-do resource and let's make use of the hard-coded to-do service. Now, the first thing which we need to do is this should be a Spring component, right? So we don't want to create instances. We would want Spring to manage that. So I'll say add component. This is a business service, so a better thing to do would be to say this is an add service. Control1, import add service. I'll remove the add component which we imported earlier. And now let's go back to the to-do resource. And now it's a add component. How do I get it in here? At auto-wired. So we would want to auto-wire the service in here. We would want Spring to manage our dependencies. And now I can say return to-do service dot find all. Now what URL do we want to map to this? We would want to map the get request, so get mapping. And what is the URL that we would want to map to this? We already decided that it's /users/to-dos. So what I'll do is I'll take that and put it down here, and instead of user underscore name we'll use username, and this string username is a path variable. In Spring MVC we already looked at it. The way we can use this is at path variable. Control1, import path variable. Now I can import the get mapping in. Control1, import it in and save this. Now you have a URL username to-dos. Now if you'd go ahead and execute a URL localhost 8080 users /in 28 minutes /to-dos, you would see these to-dos present. One of the things is right now, as things stand, we are not really using the username variable. So whichever username you put in, the service would return all the to-dos which are present in there. In this quick step, we created a service. We wanted to retrieve a list of to-dos and we wanted to connect it to the front end. So we created a service and we are ready to connect to the back end. Let's see how we can do that. Until the next step, bye-bye.